what I'd like to do today is I want to dig in with you a little bit on this notion of the trusted advisor and sort of the escalated or elevated value per se that a trusted advisor brings to a technology solution, problem and solution. You know, you and I were just together at a big conference in Phoenix, and I think everybody tripled down on it. And prior to that conference, I had written and released an article on LinkedIn called "The RFP is Dead."
Yeah.
Why trusted advisors are the future of businesses. And it had a actual tombstone on it.
Yeah, that's great.
And it said, "Rest in peace, RFP, 1880 to 2021. I since changed it to 2024. And it said, "Are survived by trusted advisors."
Yeah.
Right. And it's funny. I had a colleague who said, "Dude, you can't put that on LinkedIn. It's so morbid." He said, "That stone, you got to get rid of that stone." And I was like, you know, it just feels right in my gut. It's how I feel about it. So I'm going to go for it. And I spoke with him about a week and a half after I released it. And I said, I know. You hate the slide. You hate the pitch. He goes, whoa. Dude, I was completely wrong. He said, your engagement is off the charts. You got 4,000 or 5,000 impressions, 80 likes, 171 reposts, a bunch of, he goes, I was wrong. So what, if you don't mind, let me start with some stats, and then I'd love to get your take on the space here. There are some interesting stats out in the space about technology delivery in general. And these are public. And if you go out to Google, you can find these. But a McKinsey report said that 70% of technology projects fail to deliver on time, on budget, or with the desired features and benefits. That's a big loss. 19% of projects are considered complete failures. Man, that's a big ouch. That's in the chaos report. And 11% of IT projects fail outright. Those are staggering numbers. And let me put these into some percentages or some dollars for you real quick. 1.3 trillion spent on IT projects. What's 70% of that? 925 billion is lost. They're in full or partially. So you may get a project that, had a certain ROI coming and it didn't deliver it. So I say the 925 with some bit of caution, but nonetheless, somebody is disappointed in that spend.
But the 19%, that's a big ass number as well. That's a complete failure.
Well, let's see. Let's go back to that. The 11% is an outright failure.
Okay.
Money spent, project never starts, or it's thrown away.
Wow.
But still, what's that? $130 billion? Is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
What could we do with $130 billion?
Unreal.
We could do a lot. We could do a lot of good things. So when we talk about those numbers, I'm curious on your, take of the state and your thoughts on why why companies are struggling. What's happening there?
Yeah. Vic, it'd be interesting to see what percentage of that 1.3 trillion is procured through a formal RFP process, right?
Yeah.
That's an alarming number. And we have been using this RFP process, enterprises have for ages, right?
Yep.
And it's just gotten worse and worse. There's so many reasons why the traditional RFP process is so flawed, in my opinion. I really liked your article. I thought it was spot on. I think some of the comments you got in response to it were also equally interesting to me. In a world where technology is innovating at an unprecedented pace, as a customers ought to be, dare I say, humble enough to admit to the fact that, hey, I don't know enough right now in this moment to be able to build an exhaustive set of requirements that that captures everything that might be possible,
Yeah.
right? RFPs are never really designed with, I want to find out what's possible. RFPs are simply, no, I know
Can
what
you
I
do
need.
this?
I know what
Yeah.
I need. Can you do this? Right? Here's a
Yeah.
set of requirements, features, capabilities. Can you do these things? How do I rate it? Blah, blah, blah. And it doesn't allow for any kind of creativity around us in solutioning, and it doesn't allow for a really innovative vendor to step in and say, you're looking at this completely wrong.
Yeah.
There's a totally different perspective to have here, and this is why. That's one of the big flaws in the RFP process. And I know you got actually several comments, I think, on your LinkedIn post to that effect.
I did. It says when you reduce vendor engagement to check boxes, you lose sight of what really matters, the relationship, innovation, and outcomes.
Yes.
I mean,
That's
that
right.
was just an unbelievable comment. I thought was spot on by somebody I don't know, but somebody I am connected to on LinkedIn. I was telling my boss the other day, someone had to say it out loud.
Yeah.
I mean, long evaluation cycles in RFPs lead to analysis paralysis. Let's focus on quick pilots and proof of concept engagements instead. I mean, there is a lot here, man. And let me tell you, 104 comments, 171 reposts, and 90 some odd, likes, loves, whatever. It was well received. Now, there were a few dissenters.
Yeah.
Hey, you can't do it. And, and I responded very professionally, say, hey, appreciate your perspective. Love it. Yep. Your insight is true in some cases, but here's why, we have to challenge thinking. Change requires change.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. The cynic in me also knows that that most RFPs have some bias built into them from the get-go when they're written, right? In fact, I've always told my sales organizations over many years that don't bother responding to an RFP unless you helped write it.
Yeah.
And I think there's it's probably something that people don't like to talk about at enterprises, but inevitably there's somebody that is helping an IT leader, a technology buyer, craft that RFP.
Yeah.
And there's no way you can craft an RFP without building some bias into it, right? Which again limits the possibilities of what you actually might get in return.
Yeah.
So it's broken.
It's broken. And I think one of the other problems, Andrew, in my experience, not only being on the side of the desk that has put our fair share of them out many years ago, but now on the side that receives and helps write or respond to them, there is a sense of a decrease in value when people at the company feel like they need to go outside to bring information in. They don't want to feel unimportant. This is one of the personal growth, first, step, second step, third step, depending on where in your journey. But, asking for help is not a weakness. It's a strength.
Yeah.
You can't, just because you put your first toe on the turf doesn't mean you're going to score all the points in the Super Bowl.
Right.
You need a team, and we could make every team analogy known to man for the next hour, and everyone would ring and resonate with somebody different. But, what we try to do as trusted advisors and people in our space who are, you being at the tip of the spear, looking for the newest, latest, innovative, solutions, trying to understand and fit, then meeting with folks like me and saying, hey, what are you hearing from your customers? Does this really look like it would bring some value to them? And then you and I usually will find a spot where we go, wow, that's a home run, right? And then my job, is to bring it to the marketplace and sort of try to get people to envision what could be. Yes. But you're dealing with egos, and it's very difficult. And I don't say that disrespectfully. I have respect for people's work. I always make sure that, when I'm in somebody's company, I don't want the credit. Andrew, if you were had some job at a company and you brought me in, my job is to prop you up. My job is to make you look like the smartest person in the entire company. You're like, yep, I did my research. I brought in this person, that person, this person, that person. I got all this great advice. Here's all the data. Here are all the stats. We're going to do POC right away. And the price is going to be right. And the ROI is going to be 32%.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, it's tough.
No.
I like that you gave your sales folks, hey, don't participate because even though I know better, I've participated in many an RFP over the years that I knew was done before I even submitted. But much like you said at the top with Mr. Wonderful, I'll miss 100% of the ones I don't put something in for. So
fair.
I'm going to burn a cycle just, as a Hail Mary because it might have been a big deal.
I think it's interesting though that the RFP for many IT leaders is also a response to being pretty jaded about direct salespeople, right?
That's a very interesting perspective.
If you're a direct salesperson, your job is to sell your product, your solution.
Right.
Nobody else's, right? It's my way or the highway, and of course, customers get hammered all day by direct salespeople that swear up and down that their solution is the best ever. So, absence of any third party that helps me sort through that, I kind of have to do an RFP, don't I? Right? I'm kind of painted into that corner if I want to have some sort of objective way of analyzing all these different possible solutions that have been thrown at me. RFP becomes one vehicle to be able to analyze that. But as we've just discussed, that whole RFP process itself is broken. There's got to be a better way. I wonder if there is, Vic.
Well, I think there is, Andrew. It is the trusted advisor. Yep. But here's the skepticism that some receive.
Yep.
The trusted advisor base is built from a long line and history of people who came into this business through telecom.
Right.
Speeds and feeds, right?
Yep.
Pipes and plumbing, whatever you like to call it. But now the choices aren't AT&T and Lumen and Verizon and whomever anymore.
Right.
The choices are, what is the solution that's going to ring the greatest value?
Yeah.
For the networks, it's stability. And it's expansive with SD-WAN and other technologies, of course, SASE and things of the like. But really, when you get into AI, automation, you're getting into a lot of things that are really going to change the shape of the customer interaction and the outcomes of the business. So there's a lot more skepticism in that space. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that not all trusted advisors are created equal. And even if you look at my my post, there are some people in there say, hey, that would be great. But the bulk of the trusted advisors throw shit over the wall. Right. They don't know what they're doing. And I get it. Just like there are a lot of bad car salespeople too. Right. But when I go into a dealership and I buy a nice car and I get a pristine and an elite experience, it makes me want to go back there for service. I know it can work.
Yeah. Vic, I being on the TSD side of this, where we support thousands of trusted advisors. I think this is true for every TSD out there. Each one that I've been a part of and started. There is certainly the cream of the crop. It's not even an 80-20 rule, right? It's more like a 95-5 rule, right? Where 5% or maybe even less are the ones that are providing real value to end customers, challenging them to think differently, bringing them new insights that they hadn't considered before, being able to pull from a variety of new innovative solutions that can address their problems differently. And then the majority, as to your car analogy, right? Your car sales analogy, the majority are just out there about, this one goes 0 to 60 in 4.3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a fact that's interesting, but that's not really, I can figure that out on my own. Well, I need you to tell me that. I mean, that's I can Google that and find out what the 0 to 60 speed is, right?
What I want to sell Bugattis and give somebody a real experience. And no offense, I have a Chevy on the driveway that my kids drive, a truck and a Blazer, and they're amazing cars, but they were much easier decisions.
Yeah. For
right?
Sure.
They were much easier decisions, and they're great. They're absolutely great. There are a lot of reasons why there's failure in delivering technology. These two are not topical, or I should say they're not statistically backed by McKinsey or the Chaos Report. If you go out there and look this stuff up in Gartner, you're going to find 25 reasons. My top two reasons, what I've seen after almost 20 years in the C-suite, was that it's either the wrong solutions are selected or architected, or there's lack of execution capability. And that can be not enough resources, the wrong resources, meaning the wrong skill set. Doesn't mean I have bad people, but if I need somebody with a specific skill and I don't have that, and we try to Swiss Army knife the thing in, how many times have you turned the screw with a Swiss Army knife and inevitably slipped 3 or 4 times and scratched the surface of something or cut your finger? Inevitably, you get the screw out, but it's not really the best screwdriver, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's what you wind up in. Through your experience, lack of selection and lack of execution, what are some of the other things that you're either seeing, talking about with people and gaining a view into?
So I think for me, it's a going in, when a customer goes in blind, or with the blinders on, I should say, that I'm only considering, well, good example. I'm only considering suppliers that are in the top right of the Gartner Magic Quadrant, right? That's a great example.
Just ran into that, by the way.
And sure, there's credibility there, no question. But we also know that those vendors have to pay a lot of money to end up in that top right quadrant, right? It doesn't automatically mean that they're necessarily the best, most innovative solution that's kind of purpose built for that customer. And so having those blinders on limits the possibilities, right? I think there's so much that happens in the world of IT where we don't pause for a second and ask the question, that I always love to ask, which is suppose for a moment, right?
Yeah, suppose for a moment.
But how do you imagine potentially a very different outcome, a very different world, a very different design? I think there's the customers that are willing to go there are coming up with the most creative, most innovative approaches to technology and figuring out how that can actually help them be more competitive in a very crowded marketplace, right? And the ones that are simply saying, stubbornly somewhat, I know precisely what I need. I'm going to go find the Magic Quadrant guy that can provide me precisely what I need at the cheapest price, right?
Yep.
And that's what the RFP does. RFPs take away the creativity, the imagination, if you will. And every great thing that's been done around technology started with somebody imagining something, right? Imagining how something could be different.
Yeah.
And every significant competitive advantage that is technology driven was because of somebody somewhere saying, there's got to be a better way to do this.
You
right?
sound like an innovator. You sound like somebody who thinks without the fear of loss. So here's an interesting perspective on the other side of that. You work in a big company, especially, and you go through a near 7 to 12 month RFP process. And hopefully alongside of that is the vendor management process, which is, looking at stuff. It take a minimum of 12 to 18 months for all of this stuff to flush out.
Yep.
And then you get into implementation. The bigger company you're in, everybody's got a tentacle attached to it in some way, shape, or form. So what does that do? It drives up cost. I was part of a project at a company that was estimated to come in at $130 million. When I was asked what I thought about that budget, I told them they were off significantly. And I kind of got laughed out of Dodge, so to speak,
Yeah.
$1.3 billion later, the project failed. And it was all about execution and all about the wrong tech. This is why I'm so heavily biased. The biggest thing I ever watched from a front row seat, and I bowed out of it before it started. I said, "This is a career ender if I do it, and it's a career ender if I don't.
Yeah.
I'll take the other lane. I'd like to do something else.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to lose life from a project like this. It's not going to go well." So there was 1.3 billion. So what happens is when the numbers are that big, we're going to come full circle on this in a second. Ultimately, somebody, quote one of my old bosses, I need an ass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need an ass. I need somebody's got to take the hit. Somebody's got to be at blame. Somebody's got to get fired if it's not more than one person.
Yeah.
Hopefully the person that you want to blame has resigned and moved on and done something. Otherwise, somebody's going to take a hit. So now we're back in this vicious cycle.
Yeah.
We're back in, why did I choose Gartner upper right quadrant? Yeah, because nobody got fired for choosing upper right quadrant. Okay, check one box. Number two, was it the right technology or the wrong technology? I don't know. I took a year on RFP and 15 people scored it. And here are the results of the score.
Right.
Meanwhile, the scoring system is completely subjective.
Yeah.
If you like, fedoras and I like baseball hats, you're going to give a fedora a 10 and I'm going to give a baseball hat a 10.
Right.
And that's just going to be the way it's going to be. There is absolute bias in the scoring, but the people who put the project together are going to say, hey, and then they're going to say, and this is what the vendor promised, the result's going to be, and what's going to get lost is the poor implementation and the poor execution and all of the things along the way. So I love the way you think. I think the same way. I even thought this way when I was inside of corporate environments. I was a bit different in that regard. I never wanted to choose the product just because it was deemed safe when I knew somehow it was going to be twice the price and half as effective.
Yeah.
When everybody forced me, vendor management and other people said, or do the RFP. And then, come on, man. I was funny. I was just on a presentation the other day and I walked people through, our view of the trusted advisor. And I'm going to come to another set of facts here. It's interesting. But, and I said this, I said, hey, it's pretty simple. I said, it's rigged, right? It's almost a rigged game. Well, I had a friend who missed he's thinking of coming on and joining us in a sub perspective. And he said, hey, can you send me the recording? And he's a very thorough guy. You're going to meet him someday. You're going to love this guy. He's a 10 out of 10. And he writes me back a full page of notes. I loved what you did here. I loved what you did there. And he said, and I wouldn't use the word rigged because somebody might pick it up in the political sense because, Trump says the system is rigged. And then I said, hey, listen, love him or hate him. He did not invent that word. He does not own that word. And I'm not voting for Trump by saying that the RFP is rigged. And I wrote back in big letters, it's freaking rigged. I mean, it's like, sometimes these things are decided before they start and they're rubber stamps.
Right.
But everybody got to check the box. And, folks might not want to believe that, buddy,
It's almost like RFP is the wrong acronym. It's more like CYA, right?
Mm-hmm. No, that's a good one. That should be a collaborative article we work on.
Yeah.
The RFP is now renamed the CYA. So why trusted advisor? We started tapping into this and I took a little, page out of Drew's book. He had the whole rocket ship thing coming and that was just some AVANT stats. And, we're a part of many ecosystems and we certainly have our favorites. But I put some notes together that, hey, you can go out and hire a consultant or you can get your inner team working. But when you bring D&M on board as an example, or a trusted advisor, but I'll toot the D&M horn here for sure. First and foremost, we've got 18 professionals working in and around our company that are here working 100% towards your success. They wear our jersey, they have our badge, and in turn, they wear your jersey. And we built this proprietary customer portal that houses all your information, sits on AWS, and it's multi-tenant. You've got this great access to it. But then what we've amassed on our own dime through our own efforts over the last 23 years is a solution and distribution ecosystem that's second to none. It's got 145 support professionals available to us, which means it's available to companies. What's in that? It's pre-sales analysis, it's pricing professionals. Then I've got 41 solution engineers. You want to talk about CCaaS, AI, cybersecurity, business process outsourcing. we've got people to come that are experts in these areas that come at our cost, not the client's cost.
Yeah.
Proprietary vendor rating platform, kind of like the Yelp or the Net Promoter of these platforms, which is not publicly available.
Yeah.
So it's going to have, hey, I just did a project with ABC Corp and it didn't go so well, and here's why. And then I could reach out to that person. Lastly, this ecosystem is full of 350 solution providers, ranging from CCAS and unified communications, virtual infrastructure, voice data wireless, artificial intelligence, variable labor, cybersecurity, managed services, and last, strategic consulting and guidance. So, I mean, how do you fight against that? It's an unfair fight. Like,
Yeah.
we're coming, as they said in the Godfather, if you're going to come heavy.
That's right.
Right?
Exactly
And we come so heavy. And I think, and I redid our entire deck coming out of Special Forces, redid it, spent 2 weeks on it, sending it to the team, getting feedback, sending it to colleagues, getting it back. I think we nailed the message now about our value prop, even bigger and better than ever before, because of Special Forces. I'm going to thank Drew. And because of, our collective efforts. I just think our message is spot on and on point.
Yeah.
But when you hear it laid out like that, what else do you think about from the TA perspective? Like, did I leave anything out? Should I double down on something else?
Yeah.
Like, what's the big nugget there?
Well, I think the message is definitely spot on, and I think the message I would have, number one, to TAs is be aware of the resources available to you, right?
Yeah.
And then leverage the hell out of that, right? So many historically TAs have not really talked about the distribution partner behind them, right? And
Guilty as charged, sir.
Yeah. I mean, you and I have had that conversation.
Guilty as charged.
And I think this is a shift in perspective that I think is timely and important. That D&M doesn't have to go out and hire hundreds and hundreds of people to have this bench. When you've got those people at the ready that are purpose built to help you grow, and I think that's the point of it. It doesn't diminish at all the value
Not at
that
all.
D&M provides, right?
I have to drink my own Kool-Aid. It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength.
Exactly
and I tell people now, my ecosystem is like the National Guard.
Yeah.
I get to call it up whenever I need it.
Oh, that's good.
Right?
Yeah.
I get up to call. It's like the National Guard. You need a little help, you call in for a little help.
Yeah.
You don't need help. These people who are trained go back to their day jobs, and they offer help where they can.
I just, sorry for the distraction. I just got a completely random text from a guy that you and I both know really, really well, who may be, I think he was once considered the godfather of this space, of the TSD.
Ah, you got, the godfather.
Godfather, that's right.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny?
Big shout out. He knows we're chatting, so he's trying to get on in the innovation. Hey, I want to hit the last few points here just to sort of wrap up our segment. So, 1, 2, 3, 5 key areas as to why, if I were just sitting next to somebody and talking about why the trusted advisors are the future of business decisions, I would say, hey, first of all, you should choose expertise over RFPs and forms.
Mm.
Trusted advisors offer deep expertise, tailored to unique business needs. And we have insights that go beyond generic solutions. So much like you said, thinking about it outside of, does it do this? What can it do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it enable me to do that I hadn't even thought of yet?
Oh, right? Man, that's the best nugget right there, because in the RFP process or in the advisory space, you hope to find out the things you haven't been thinking about. Yeah. You need to jump ahead of your competition, not do what they're doing.
Mike Tesler, who I had did a podcast earlier today with, that is the founder of a company called Broadsoft, kind of a technology luminary in this space, and he's talking about AI with me. And one note he made today was, there's AI for like personal productivity, right?
Yeah.
Chat GPT stuff. Can I solve an Excel formula? Can I run a blog better? That kind of stuff. There's AI that's applied to kind of business processes that groups can use that can drive it's out of groups, which is really interesting. And then the third thing he said, which was fascinating to me, is there's AI that is opening up the eyes of leaders around new business opportunities that they hadn't even considered yet. Right? They hadn't even considered yet. It wasn't even on the radar.
Amazing.
But this innovation is now saying, wow, we could go this direction as a business and reinvent ourselves, right? Or compete in a different way and win. That's the RFP stifles that, right?
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It stifles that.
It does. Partnerships drive growth. Trusted advisors are, I tell people we're around forever. We're around for the life and beyond. I tell people all the time, we've lost one customer since we've been here. There was a change in guard and we moved on. And the guy on the front line had to call us and tell us that, they were moving on. And I said, hey, you can call us anytime. You are our forever customer. And I said, and there may be a time where you'll come back. And that time had come. That time came to us. There was another opportunity there. But we're long-term, partners and advisors. When you deal with direct sales, you're largely dealing with a salesperson who's looking to knock it out of the park, get promoted. It won't be on your account this time next year.
That's right.
Just won't
That's
be.
Exactly right. I heard a
adaptability.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Go
the
ahead.
average tenure of a direct account executive, average tenure of a direct sales rep is like 14 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible. Yeah. I don't even know how that, they're washing out. That's what it has to be.
It is. They wash out. They go somewhere else. It's like, how do you've got to imagine your technology strategy and vision goes way, way beyond that horizon. It better, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Of course. I mean, when we hire salespeople, we don't even think they're going to be profitable for our company until 2+ years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you got to really be missing it to hit the bricks in 14 months.
Right.
Third thing is adaptability in fast changing markets. We touched on this a little bit. The RFP just doesn't move fast enough. If I have a 7 or 8 month RFP, I am left in the proverbial dust. And in today's date, Andrew, I think you'll agree, if I take 14 months to implement, I'm already looking at old technology.
Yeah, so true. So true. There are capabilities today that are complete realities today that hadn't even been conceived of 6 months ago.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It's a very, very different, radically different world from what we lived in 5 years ago.
The fourth one, cost effective and time efficient. I mean, I think that's something we've been selling for a very long time. We just make it better, faster, cheaper for them. We know what deals have gone down. We know where the pricing's hitting. We know what opportunities they are. We know when providers are looking to make deals. We know how much they can customize or how much they'd be willing to customize. And we've done a ton of research. We are a 24/7, 365 RFP machine, virtual RFP machine, so to speak, by our constant look at what the latest, greatest landscape looks like and what their capabilities look like. We have our own internal score sheets and check cards and colleagues who we talk to throughout the industry. And then people like yourself who we're constantly, getting counsel and guidance from and just saying, hey, what's coming up down the pipe here? How does an RFP even match that?
Yeah, no way. Drew Leidecker and I were talking about this exact point recently where, we basically through our ecosystem, we have eyes on damn near every deal done in this space in the enterprise.
Yeah. Amazing.
And it's, we know where pricing is at. We know what flexibility vendors have or don't. We know, there's so much information that we have at our fingertips that would be impossible for an individual solo customer to be able to get on their own.
Couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it. No way.
Could do it. What are they going to do? Call 2 references? And when was the last time you gave a reference where somebody was going to say something bad about you?
Yeah.
Yeah, never. Hey, the last thing on the list is something we lean into, and I could talk about this for an eternity, but, building trust through relationships. I have been very blessed to have partners that I've worked very hard to build a level of trust and confidence with. I've achieved that through consistency, honesty, going the extra mile. I've been in this space for 8 years. I've got customers and friends for that long who, if they're in town, we make sure to connect, even if not on business.
Yeah.
It's my favorite part of this business. But now, there are a number of customers that'll say, hey, have you called D&M? Have you called Vic specifically? The bounces past him. And they're like, oh, I guess this guy has a love affair with him. He's like, no, he's been around for 8 years and we've made 10 decisions based on his counsel. They all went well.
Yeah.
So, let's just ask him. We don't have to do it, but let's just get some feedback. And it's I don't want to let people down. These relationships are very deep and personal and they matter to me. I'm not moving on in 14 months.
Right.
Right.
That's right. And that is true of your peers, man. Right. You
of course.
You're in a very, lucky group of top performing trusted advisors. What's cool about this community is we all talk to each other. Right.
Yeah.
And the relationships that are formed amongst these trusted advisors is pretty special. But that's what you just said about 14 months. That's consistent across every single one of those guys. Right.
Yeah. So let's do this. We're going to wind down this topic, but I want to give you the last piece. If you want to put a bow on this thing, what would you say about, if you wanted to leave somebody, even if you repeat a few things, what's the most poignant thing you could say about the RFP and its time?
Well, let's go full circle back to your stats.
Okay.
Right? Because I think we calculated, what was it? $247 billion was a number I came up with of failed or partially failed implementations of IT purchases, right? Somewhere north of $200 billion.
Yeah.
And what do they say about the definition of insanity?
Yeah, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. That's right.
Yeah. So why would you continue to adopt a process that is proven over decades, especially now in this that it's broken? There's got to be a better, faster way to do this, and exasperated by the pace of innovation. You've been using this old vehicle to make procurement decisions that in no way in shape or form can keep pace with where technology is going at the pace that it's innovating, right? And so you have to find a new vehicle. You just have to. If you don't, you're going to continue to those failure rates are going to continue to go up, right? So that would be my encouragement. Is we happen to think that better vehicle is the trusted advisor. I'm a
for sure.
That, and if there's a customer listening to this that hasn't yet explored that, it's a game changer. It is absolutely a game changer.
Andrew, thanks for the chat on this topic, man. Super cool. Appreciate it.
You bet, man. Enjoyed it. Good selling.
Well, here we are again, Adam. Another day, another podcast, another episode. How are you, man?
Oh, good, brother. I need more podcasts in my life. That's what
you don't
I need,
have enough. What do you got, 79,000 episodes under your belt?
So my wife is hiking in the Smoky Mountains with her Explorer chicks. What does Adam do on his free night? Talking to Vic on the podcast, of course.
I saw some of the pictures. Caught the Northern Lights. I was a little jealous. I was a little jealous.
Well, it was really tough because this is in Tennessee, not far from where Helene has caused a lot of devastation, and we've been in touch. We have a lot of people we know in North Carolina, Western North Carolina. A lot of no agenda producers live out there. So yeah, I was basically spending my time filling up helicopter gas tanks.
Come on.
Yeah, that was the best way I could help. It's like I just called up the airport and said, how many birds you got there? So about 20. So let's start filling them up. Because every time you come back with whether you're an MD5, 500 or a Robbie 44, it's $350, $400. So let's fill them up, and so that's how I was able to help there. And I was trying to, of course, I'm an active amateur radio operator.
Yeah.
So I was monitoring all of the emergency nets. There was no one who needed any contact with Texas, but it was actually quite lovely. from an old ham dude perspective. I've had my license for a decade
You were on the
now.
hams, as they say.
I was
You were
definitely on the
hams.
hams. I was definitely on the hams. And when we had the snowpocalypse in Texas, was it now 3 years ago? I think 4 years ago.
I think this is 3 years. This
3
winter
years
coming up.
We were stuck in our home back then in Austin for 5 days, and we had no power. And I was really disappointed with the ham radio networks because there was just nothing going on. I'm like, this is worthless.
Wow.
But this time it really worked. And it was everything from, getting in touch with people in other states and relaying messages, which these emergency networks actually they train for. They train every week, sometimes twice a week, right down to I need corrugated pipe 10 feet.
Wow.
Someone was able to get that. So, and it was really, it really reminded me that what America's about, because I've lived in a lot of different countries, and we do have this tendency here to think, well, the government's going to take care of me. Well, guess what? The government never really takes care of you. So if you're going to sit around and wait, you might die. And when people just jump in and say, look, you're my fellow countrymen, I'm going to do something for you and try and help each other out. And you notice how everything gets dropped, political affiliations, nothing matters. It's a blue state, by the way. The whole area is blue, and a lot of good old boys running around helping people. So when you look at the timelines on social media, there's a lot of, just outrage and anger about the federal government not doing stuff. But guess what? They've always sucked. That's just what they do. They're inefficient. Government is not a functional body. And the sooner we realize that, the longer we'll live.
I have a friend from Australia. And I spent a lot more time with him when he was married to his ex-wife, because the couple, he was part of the clique with the couples, right? He's since moved out of town. He loved America for business, loathed the government, absolutely loathed the government. And he would say, oh, the system here is completely broken. The system here is broken. And, political affiliations aside, politics aside, you can't run something for 350 million people efficiently. It's just there is efficiency in 350 million people. That's like 1 and 1 equaling 40. That's just, you're never going to get it to equal 2.
Well, we have state governments that I think I've always thought Ron DeSantis would be kind of a creepy guy as a president, but as a governor, man, he's just killing it. He knows what he's doing, and so it's. It really isn't politics is local. When you really look at it, totally. It's local. When stuff happens here, I know who the mayor is. I know the city council, and people can get together and start doing stuff. Austin's a little bigger, it was a little more complicated. But just in general, I've seen socialism and I've lived in socialism. And it's, you got a lot of this people waiting around. Well, the government, I deserve, blah, blah, blah. And what I saw here in Tennessee, Georgia, Western North Carolina, parts of Florida was, no, we're Americans. We're going to do this. We're going to figure this out. We do need some help to fix the insurance companies because they're just running rampant and they're ripping everybody off. But otherwise,
none of this was part of our topics for tonight. But I love the dialogue. So hey,
I'm just trying to get into it with you, brother.
We're warmed up here for sure.
We don't talk enough. When we chat, it's like, oh, that guy died. Oh, okay, all right. Which,
we're
by
not
the way,
talk about that guy.
Is a bad thing to be catching up on. That when the last time we spoke, someone had passed. Yeah, and I think we agreed. The message is we need to be seeing each other and talking more often than, did you hear so and so passed? So
there's a lot of that. I've been since the passing of that person. I've been contacted by a lot of people, and we've made that promise to one another. So
it's the way to go.
No, we shouldn't put shame on ourselves. But anyway, I have a topic I'd like to kick off tonight. I know it's a topic you're going to love. I guarantee you're not going to say no. I haven't talked about it yet on the podcast. I'm a few laps behind you in my understanding and knowing of this topic, but I've been coming up to speed pretty quickly. And so I believe there's I could at least carry the conversation. I want to talk about Bitcoin. Okay.
Wow. I didn't expect that, Vic.
Yeah.
I didn't expect that.
I want to talk about Bitcoin because I have, I've become a Bitcoin evangelist a bit, have done the research, talked to you. I have a very good friend that's been in Bitcoin since sub $1,000, amassed a fortune in it, considers himself, quote, I am the CEO of my own Bitcoin company.
Sure.
That's how he sees himself right now because, and then he'll send me a text. Oh, wait a minute. It's Wednesday at 12:01 p.m. Time to buy some Bitcoin. I'll be right back. And he goes out and he buys some Bitcoin and he comes back. He talks often about let's take it back. I know you were early into cryptocurrency. You're a Satoshiaire, as they say, have been amassing Bitcoin, buying, selling, doing all this stuff. Can you break it down for the everyday person who might not understand what Bitcoin is in the Adam Curry language? Maybe give us your view on it. Explain what you think this is and what its place is.
Let's dive in, Vic.
Yeah, let's dive in.
I see that slogan you've got there. This Notebook LM podcast thing. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
This Notebook LM from Google. You can drag a bunch of links in, and then you can say make a podcast, and it's the same two voices. Yeah. But they always say, "Let's dive in."
Bastards stole my stuff.
They stole it from you. See, AI's ripping you off.
Has this been happening before March 7th? That's all I want to know.
No, this is after you, so you should definitely go after him. Good luck.
Well, I didn't trademark it, so I'm kind of
done. Well, let me give you a little my history of Bitcoin because it really took me a good 11 years to understand it.
Okay,
and that's important because when Bitcoin just started, this is around 2000. What is it? 2009, I think.
Yeah.
People were sending me emails about this Bitcoin thing, and Dvorak and I were doing the podcast, No Agenda, and people were sending me just stuff that I wasn't tuned into it. Like, I think this really has a future. This is the real deal. This is going to fix the money. When people say that, you're not versed in Bitcoin. Like, okay, what? I mean, I barely had read Ron Paul's End the Fed at that point. So I was just understanding, the Federal Reserve is not actually a government institution. Okay. It's as Federal Reserve as FedEx.
Yep.
And people were sending me Bitcoin. And I tried mining for half a minute. All I got was I had a Mac Pro and was just overheating and nothing was happening. And it was very unclear what I was doing. But people were sending me Bitcoin. And I had some kind of wallet. I really didn't understand much of it. And I just didn't pay much attention to it until around 2015. All of a sudden, Bitcoin was $900. I'm like, holy crap. I don't know what happened here, but let me see what I got. And I said, I got 65 Bitcoin. This is great. I'm going to sell it all. So I to day trade, just for context between you and me, that's an extra special joke.
Yeah.
So I sold it all. About 6 months later, it goes to 9,000 or 10,000. I'm like, okay, that was a mistake. And so I just kind of left that. I mean, literally, John and I had seen eCash, and you remember eCash? Whoopi Goldberg was promoting eCash back in the .com days. I mean, we've seen it was eGold, all these different things, and nothing ever really panned out. So but obviously the idea of digital money had been around. We could, I stem from back in the days when no one would even put their credit card into a website in the internet. Well, you crazy? I'm not going to do that. So what a way we've come. Of course, PayPal kind of became default payment mechanism. We have many more now. And it was right before COVID started. And I was actually working on Podcasting 2.0. We were just deciding to set up Podcast Index. And the two things we wanted to accomplish was to make it so that you couldn't be your podcast could not be deplatformed, which we have in our own power now because of an independent podcast index, which over 70 apps and services now use. But as a part of that, we also wanted to see if we could stop financial deplatforming, which was also happening. People were getting kicked off of Patreon and PayPal, and people getting debanked. And around the same time, there was this second layer, it's called, or side chain, and we can get into that later, but it is Bitcoin, called the Lightning Network. And the Lightning Network enabled you to have a wallet in the same way you have a Bitcoin wallet, but to send very small amounts with literally, almost no fees, sub-penny fees in some cases. So I decided to figure it out and learn about it. And while I'm learning how this stuff works, and it's technical implementation, we get COVID, we get lockdown, Bitcoin goes below 4,000.
Yep.
And so I say to Tina, my wife, I say, I've now studied this thing. I think we should start buying Bitcoin, and we need to start saving, because that's really kind of what it's most useful for right now. So over the past 4 years, I've really gotten a good education. I understand much better what it is, what the function is, what it isn't, and how it can, in an ideal world, it could actually stop wars if you really think deep about it. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is you actually have to understand money first to understand Bitcoin. And to understand money, you have to go back to different forms of money. At one point, grains of sand, of salt, grains of rice. We still use some of the old money terms, like 100 clams back in the early days in New York. Actually, it was New York, a tribe of Indians. They had literal clam shells, and clam shells were used as money. They represented money. What other
shekels?
Shekels, of course. There's a lot of things are still kind of in our language, because money has been represented in so many different ways throughout the ages. So the problem with money has always been who controls it and who makes it. So if you go back to the days of Rome, money was typically gold coins, and of course they had some silver and other types. So gold has always been a great representation of money, because it's not very easy to make new gold. You have to go and find it, and you're either mining for it or you're panning for it or whatever there is. But it's not really an easy thing to get. So there's kind of a finite amount of gold with a certain amount that gets added each year. You can kind of estimate what that is. And everybody can verify that, okay, this is a gold coin. And that's actually, what was it? Sound money. That's, if you've ever heard of the term sound money.
Yeah, sure.
That was back in the day. If you dropped a gold coin, you could hear by the actual tone if it was fully gold, if it was sound money. So that's where that comes from, which worked really well in Rome for quite a long time until I want to say it was Nero, but I'm not sure. One of the Kaisers, probably Nero, decided, I can clip the edges off these coins and keep that, and and then make some more coins for myself. And of course, the riches grew, and it was almost undetectable. Then you got people melding in other types of metals, and so what you're doing there is you're diluting the currency.
Hence, get clipped.
You get clipped,
Right?
exactly, and it's truly a dilution of money. So now this is basic economics. If you have an X amount of money in the market and there's a product that people want, if there's more money in the market, just a lot more, what's going to happen is people have more cash, the price is going to rise. That's just your basic economics.
Yep.
And we're seeing that right now, where we created in US dollars 7 or 8 trillion in the past 4 years. Actually, I think it's some obscene number like 40% of all the dollars ever printed or ever created in our history were made in the last 4 years. So you get all this extra money. So, gee, guess what? Prices of everything goes up. There's some other factors in there, but that's really the basic factor. So he who controls the money controls a lot. And that is where we have the Federal Reserve, or in the UK where Bitcoin started on, I think it was February, was it?
2009.
It was 2009, but it was a certain date when Gordon Brown, who was then the Chancellor of the Exchequer, who was in charge of the British Central Bank, he bailed the banks out and basically printed a whole bunch of pound sterling. And so that was put into the very first Bitcoin, this, Gordon Brown, prints all this extra money. And so this is what we in banking terms call our target 2% inflation. What they really mean by that is we're going to print an extra 2% of our money per year. That's really what that means. And of course, we're all psyoped into believing, inflation is prices. So Bitcoin looks at that in exactly the reverse order. Because it's digital, the determination was made, and this is just through the formula of Bitcoin, there will never be more than 21 million Bitcoin.
Yep.
The great thing about Bitcoin is because it's digital, you can divide it indefinitely. So a Bitcoin exists of 100 million Satoshis. That's just a name. You could call it sticks or grains of rice, whatever we call it, Satoshis. And you can divide each Satoshi into 1,000 millisatoshis. And you can keep on going forever. So instead of expanding the money supply, we actually start chopping it up into smaller bits. What's genius about Bitcoin is that it is a completely decentralized system where no one person controls the entire thing. Yeah. And for many, many years, it was unclear if this was going to work because there were too few people who were really being a node on the network. And now I even have several nodes actually on the network in my house. And there's probably about at least 100,000 people around the world who have Bitcoin nodes which control this protocol. So no single person can change it. At the same time, the code is completely open and everybody can see it. So there's no shenanigans going on. So that's the basis of Bitcoin. There's 100 million Bitcoin. Nobody can make that more Bitcoin. And the Bitcoin is created at a set and known frequency, which is now 1% per year for the next 4 years. And then after that, it'll be 0.5%, and it'll keep going. It'll keep halving roughly every single 4 years until that 21st million Bitcoin is being created. That's what mining is.
Yeah.
And when that happens, we'll be dead. That's like 2075 or something. So,
help me with the math on that, because according to my research, 21 million coin is the peak, as you said. But it says that Bitcoin is mined, through proof of work, right? That's the mining process. But they say that 19.74 million Bitcoins have been created. Yes. Of the maximum, leaving 1.26 million Bitcoins.
Right. So the way it works, and this is the genius of the protocol, is when it first started, I think every coin, every 10 minutes, because it works. New Bitcoins are created on a rough time scale of every 10 minutes.
Okay.
The first 4 years was like 10,000 every 10 minutes. But then the second 4 years was 5,000. So now we're down. Yeah. Yes, so now we're down to 3.5 per every 10 minutes per block. Yeah. So in 2028, roughly, we'll be down to 1.75. So you can see where it just squeezes out over time. So it's actually a deflationary currency.
Understood.
So it's genius. I mean, there's something called the Satoshi White Paper, and it's not really technical. I mean, anybody can read this. It's not a long read, but it's worth reading through it. You can go to the Satoshi Institute, and there's lots of And I would suggest reading about the history of money to really understand how money has been used and how it's been misused. I mean, this is kind of the situation that we're in. And again, you can't talk about Bitcoin without understanding our US dollar. Our US dollar was pegged to gold. You could go get $1 worth of gold for your paper dollar. It was interchangeable. And in 1971, President Nixon announced that we're going off the gold standard, and the dollar became a petrodollar.
Yes.
And by the way, interest rates like 20% in the late 70s. You bought a house, that was your mortgage payment was 20%. We went through a lot of weird times after that. But the whole beauty of it was we can continue to create dollars as much as we want. As long as everybody needs dollars, it's a perfect system. Mm-hmm. It is. And why does everyone need dollars? Because we made a deal with Saudi Arabia. You guys, you will control all of our oil. We'll buy your oil from us. You can sell your oil to whoever you want, as long as you sell it in dollars. And as long as you can keep 15% of all your money there, buy your Rollses, your jets, your palaces, call yourself princes. I don't think any of them were. I think they were camel herders. But okay, you can call yourself royal family, but all the other money you have to invest in the U.S., in real estate, in our money markets, our treasuries, our stock markets, whatever you want to do. So that made the United States very rich and very, very powerful. The only downside to that is to have that kind of a money system, the way you enforce it is with a big gun.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you don't want to play by the game? Okay, we're going to bring some democracy to you. And so that's kind of been the system since 1971. And a lot of our foreign policy has been a part of that. So when you get this parallel system, which you almost can't argue that it hasn't been successful, because it went from zero against the US dollar to currently $66,000 against the US dollar. That's a pretty powerful currency. And even though it fluctuates, it's fluctuating a lot less than it used to. And it's a global system. You can send this value digitally anywhere in the world within 10 minutes. Smaller amounts instantaneously, as I said earlier, through the Lightning Network. Yep. It's well integrated into the financial system. You can buy it as a part of your 401k and an ETF. And so interesting
point to that, right? So if you did a little search and you find out who the top 5 Bitcoin investors are, top of the list, Satoshi Nakamoto, the anonymous Bitcoin creator, rumored to hold the most Bitcoin. Okay. Do we have any idea who this guy is, or gal, or whoever?
No. And that's, if
Hence
anything,
anonymous.
that's the beauty of it. It helped with the game theory and the mystique, but at the same time, you can't really, I'm glad there's no one to go after, and no one to hold up, no one to idolize. We just say we are all Satoshi because we don't know who it is. And that, $1 trillion worth of Bitcoin that Satoshi at least had the key to at a certain point. Yeah. May not even have it. He may be dead. They may be dead. I don't know who it is, but it doesn't matter because I can see the code. Everybody can see the code. If you want to create your own Bitcoin, you can copy that code and make a new Bitcoin tomorrow and run it with your own rules. Do whatever you want. People have tried multiple times, and no one has been successful, as successful certainly as Bitcoin.
Number 2, Binance. Okay, the crypto exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 largest Bitcoin holder. Okay. Number 3, Grayscale, one of the first businesses to create investing products related to Bitcoin. Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust ETF. Okay. Almost 300,000 coins.
After that's probably iBit from Goldman.
Yeah. How about this? BlackRock iShares.
Oh, that's BlackRock. Yeah.
Okay. iShares.
Well, also, so Larry Fink, BlackRock, and Jamie Dimon of JP Morgan, they both were very vocally against Bitcoin, saying it's worthless, it makes no sense, it's no good. And there was a real big turnaround by those guys about a year and a half ago. So
huge turnaround.
That's pretty big. Yeah.
Well, I know that there was an article that announced the JP Morgan Bitcoin strategy.
Yes.
And then last, number 5, certainly not last, look no further than MicroStrategy, with Michael Saylor being the
Right.
former CEO. And Michael is one of the biggest voices at the conferences on Bitcoin, and it's got so many great presentations out on YouTube and other places. Really explains Bitcoin well, the currency, the valuation model.
So he really set the model for people like me.
Okay.
His model was, I'm just going to keep buying Bitcoin because I know that over time, and you have to look at a 4 to 5 year time scale. I look at 4, but some people say 5. Whatever you invested, it will be worth more in that period. And so far, it's been worth significantly more every 4-year period. Now, what he did is at the time, so he started buying before the interest rates went up.
Yep.
He was literally getting free money because you could borrow money at almost 0%, and he was just turning that into Bitcoin. And so now he's written bonds against his corporate wealth and all these different things. So he is just borrowing money for X amount, knowing that it will have a much higher return when he invests that in Bitcoin. And I mean, it's just undeniable the strategy has worked. It's a little bit of it's not easy for people to compare it to things because, if you look at it as a stock, it's like, well, it goes up, it goes down, it can go up 10%, down 10%. That can happen within the span of a week or two.
Yep. It's not a day trader's paradise.
Well, no, there's a lot of people who really love doing that because, they sit there and wait for the big pops to happen. We had a big one happen yesterday and today.
Yes.
And so, you can definitely, run it as a day trade, and you kind of need those kinds of people in the market who are doing that. But in general, I told you where we started at 4,000. It was really a reset. We got very fortunate that we were able to buy in that reset moment, which did not last very long. I mean, it dipped below 4,000 and was up, subsequently went over 70 not long after that. And, we're kind of seeing what happens now, but it's still right on track with every 4-year period to go up to 100, maybe by the end of the year. I think there's and we just say Bitcoin does what Bitcoin does. It'll hang out there until there's some catalyst, which will be the election, one way or the other.
Yep.
But in the meantime, I just use it as a saving strategy. It's like whatever I don't need, whatever I save, we put it into Bitcoin and just leave it there. It's great for a number of reasons. One, it's completely ours. It's our bank. It's our keys. No one can steal it from us unless they literally steal the key. I have some Bitcoin where I have the key memorized. There's no other way to get it out of me than to pummel me.
Yep.
And even then, it probably wouldn't be easy.
Do you maintain your own wallet, or do you use a
Yes.
Coinbase or something like that?
Yes. No. It's with great sovereignty comes great responsibility. There's no help desk. So if you want to leave it on Coinbase, you can leave it on Coinbase or CoinDesk. What is it? CoinDesk, Coinbase? What is Coinbase?
Coinbase.
You can leave it there. I mean, that's typically where people will sell to turn it into some other currency, which is very fast. It is the only asset that you can literally trade 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you need money wherever you are in the world, you have access to your money just by having a digital wallet. You can send money to people. I mean, my daughter, she's in the Netherlands, and certainly during COVID, she had huge energy spikes in her electricity costs, and I would just send her Bitcoin. It was, just send it through JP Morgan Chase would be like $50 to send a wire, and it would take 2 to 3 days. And now it's 10 minutes, and she can sell it right away from her Bitcoin account. There, drops right into her bank account immediately. So you can't beat that.
I was having a conversation with somebody about Bitcoin who's very financially savvy, and I would say has always run a great business, has no stomach for Bitcoin at all, just thinks it's volatile, thinks it's not safe. And so I said, okay, well, tell me about it not being safe. And they go, well, What if somebody hacks it? And so I said, let's walk this down one step at a time. So they said, what if somebody hacks it?
Hacks what?
Well, hold on a second, because let's assume we know what the what is.
Yeah.
Okay. Can hack into that sort of Bitcoin network in some way, shape, or form, although it's distributed, although it's isolated, right? You say it's open source, the code's out there. Let's say somebody can hack it. I said, so you mean to tell me somebody can't hack your bank account? I said, let's say you got $1,000 in the bank. I know you have a lot more. Are you going to the bank and picking up a gold nugget or a barrel of oil or something to, relative to the value that's holding that currency? What's the risk? Like, somebody could easily hang into your particular bank, a much smaller, less, more singularly defined, arguably less secure network. Why can't they hack into that? And we can get into debates about that, but that was the piece. Then I said, okay, yeah, it goes up and down. I said, well, do you own stocks? Yeah, but that's valued in something. And so then you had told me once, and I've used this to explain this, and this is the cool thing, because I think makes sense. And I've even heard Michael Saylor repeat this a little bit. You said, when I said to you years ago, hey, dude, what is Bitcoin? You said, hey, here's an easy way to think about it. It's a transference of energy, right? So think about it as, right now we're the petrodollar. It's similar in that that's an energy-based, like it's a commodity that is turns into energy, and it's based, and there's a value to it based upon what we could do with the energy. So the mining comes from CPU and electricity, and you pay for that CPU and electricity and all that processing, and that converts into Bitcoin. And then with the halving, over time, I need to do more processing to create a larger.
Stop on the energy, because you're onto a really good point there. Stop on the energy. When someone pays you for doing something, they are paying you for your energy, whether it was your brain energy, your physical energy, whatever. They're paying you for your human cycles of doing something, and there's a value attributed to that. Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right that all money is related to human energy or energy in general. So the petrodollar, a barrel of oil costs $80. So by the time you whittle it all down, you can kind of calculate, how much energy one paper dollar represents. The downside is the bank can literally make more paper dollars. In fact, when you go take a loan out, they create more money just on the fact that you borrowed that money. It's crazy. It's so hard to grasp that your bank is printing or creating money, but that's happening every single day. In my garage right now, I have a miner that's doing 110 terahashes a second. So that runs at about 2,800 watts continuous. So it's like a hairdryer, basically.
I was going to say that's less than a hairdryer. And your hair looks fantastic, by the way.
Thank you. And every day, about $8 drops out in Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And that's straight into my wallet. Now, I'm actually, because of the what I pay for energy out here, I'm actually losing a little bit of money on that. It probably cost me about $8 at the current Bitcoin prices. But of course, I don't turn that into dollars. I keep it in Bitcoin. So as Bitcoin goes up, it's going to become profitable for me. And once it hits like $77,000 a Bitcoin, I'll be mining profitably. But basically, I'm running at a little bit of a loss. So it's a bit of an investment for me. That's the way I see it. Yeah. But that represents a true value. So for me to make one Bitcoin, it's a lot of running the hairdryer, but ultimately that Bitcoin represents $66,000. So what kind of energy can I buy with that? I can buy all the energy that it took to build a car. So if you look at it as energy and just storing energy is a very, very valid analogy. Very, very valid.
If people wanted to learn more in depth about Bitcoin, where would you point them? What sources would you point them to get educated on it?
I would say the Satoshi Institute, and I'll send you the URL. You can put it on the show. Okay. Particularly the history of money. Just once you understand the history of money, you understand why anything can be money and why this is perfect money, because it can't be tinkered with. No one can steal your money by printing more of it. So, we have money. You and I got money in the bank. Every year that the value of that money is diminishing by somewhere between 8 and 10%.
That is the hardest thing to get people to understand.
Because more money is being printed every single year by our U.S. government. Well, the Federal Reserve is printing the money through the banks, but we're basically borrowing it because we're running deficit financing. This is why when we were kids, jump for Toyota. How much did the Toyota truck cost? Do you remember? I remember what it cost.
$8,000?
$4,999. That's how much the brand new truck costs. These days, you can't get a Toyota truck for $50,000.
Nope.
So that's because of inflation. That is literally inflation, because more money has been printed, more money has been created. The more money there is, the higher prices go. That's why the stock market is like, the stock market's going up. The stock market's just barely keeping in pace with inflation, which is the devaluation of your money. So what's great about Bitcoin is if you save it in Bitcoin, and I know people who put everything into Bitcoin, they have a credit card or a debit card, and it just takes the money out of Bitcoin when they need to use it. And they keep ahead of inflation. So at least they're not losing on their overall, on the money they've worked for. However they obtain that, it's not being taken away by just printing. And of course, the other resource would be the Bitcoin Standard by a guy named Saifedean Ammous Saifedean, the Bitcoin Standard book. This is a great story. This guy lived in Lebanon, and he converted all of his money into Bitcoin, and he was able to get out of Lebanon with his family with his money intact. Because go look what happened to the Lebanese currency. It's completely wiped out. It's completely inflated through the roof, and you can't even get X amount of money out of there are bullet holes in every bank building because people go in like, I'm going to shoot you unless you give me my money. This can happen. This can happen anywhere.
Saifedean Ammous, Ammous.
Yeah, it's a great book, and so he in that book advocates for the whole world going on the Bitcoin Standard and using Bitcoin as our interchangeable currency. This is not an easy thing to do, but if you think about it, there wouldn't even be any wars because you couldn't print Bitcoin to create your war machine. And what would you do it for? Because you're not going to go steal someone else's Bitcoin because you can't. This is why you see Trump and RFK Jr. all advocating for a Bitcoin reserve. I think personally, the U.S. Treasury should be mining Bitcoin all day long. I mean, it's a valid instrument. It's obvious that it increases in value. And having it is, I think everyone should at least have some Bitcoin. And you don't need to have a whole Bitcoin. You can buy $5 worth of Bitcoin. I mean, you can literally buy $1 if you want. You could, or you could earn it. You could, with podcasting 2.0, you've seen it, where you can people can send you Bitcoin as a value for the podcast. I save all that I get from our podcast, and I buy beef with it through the Texas Beef Initiative. So we are actually using it. And I know that at K&C Cattle, Cole, when I buy, the equivalent of $800 worth of beef, I know that he has to sell about $500 to $600 worth of that in order to, fulfill his obligations in the fiat U.S. dollar denominated world, but he keeps the rest. And you know what? When that Bitcoin goes up 3 weeks later, I'm happy for him.
Oh,
I'm happy for him. I was like, hey, you won, brother. Good.
Big time.
Hold on to it. So, but that's the cool thing. Your whole mindset changes when you put everything into Bitcoin. You look at the Bitcoin and go, I really like that new phone, that new computer, but if I spend it now, that same Bitcoin that I'm spending now might be worth, will probably be worth twice in 4 years from now. Maybe it'll go up 20% in 3 weeks from now. So I got to make a real hard decision. It's the inverse of the world we're living in, where no one saves anymore. You just buy on credit, and then you pay off your credit card until the credit card's full, and they get another credit card, transfer the balance, and you start working on that. Now it's the inverse. It's like, okay, I have this money and I can spend it now. How badly do I really need this particular thing at this very moment in my life? Can I wait? If I wait, I can get a better one in 6 months from now, because the value of my money will have increased the way it used to be when you and I were growing up, and you'd get taught the lesson of compounding interest, save a penny every single day. Well, that kind of went out the window, because even now that interest rates have gone up, where your savings account gets a little bit of money, the amount of inflation in the currency, the amount of money supply that increases is killing us. So you literally need to get a 10% raise every year at your job to stay ahead of the printing that the U.S. any government does,
it's
not just the U.S. government.
Is what it is.
It's
a rope-a-dope. 4% on your savings, 5%, whatever it is now, 3.75. It's a rope-a-dope, because inflation is doubling or tripling. And quite frankly, if you really took the consumer price index and tore it apart and put back in all the things that make a difference in your life.
It used to be a ribeye that they would take as a cost, and now it's like a hamburger helper.
Yeah, no, it's ridiculous. So if you put all the things back in the consumer price index that really affect you on a day-to-day basis, I would argue that it's 25% inflation over the last year or two. It's been astronomical. I haven't seen anything like it in my lifetime. So I did a little research here. Hold on. They say by 2140 is the estimate.
There you go. 2140.
Creation of the last coin.
Yeah.
What happens in 2140?
Well, no more coins will be created. Then we'll keep dividing the money, because there will be more people. There will be more, who knows where we'll be, but there's likely there will be more people. So more people will be needing Bitcoin. The more people need it, the more the value goes up. There will still be fees, obviously, for transferring, but that will all just work the way it works now, generally speaking. I can't tell people what to do. I can tell people what I do. We buy the same amount every single day, 7 days a week. We buy the same amount of Bitcoin, no matter what the price is. Yep. This way,
cost averaging.
It was cost averaging, daily cost averaging. So if you look at over time, where some disgusting amount, like 74% increase in our money since we started doing this, which means we bought at 69, but we also bought at 32. And it's the same amount every single day. And so you just look at what do I want to put away on a monthly basis, and you can go to like Swan Bitcoin, where we do it. You can do it Coinbase, whatever you want. I like Swan because I like those guys, and they just take it out of your bank account every day, the same amount, and then usually at the end of 2 weeks, I have them transfer the Bitcoin to my personal wallet, and that is safe because it's mine. No one else can access that but me and my wife. We have multi-signature, so that means there's 3 parties involved. So you need 2 of 3. So in order to sell it, we both have to agree, or after 60 days, if one of us is gone, then there's a third party who contractually can then sign that. So there'll be a 2 of 3 in that case.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does. So let's go back to the thing we talked about before. When you said, I said they can hack it. You said hack what? Explain that to people who don't understand.
Yeah. So now we have to use that mythical blockchain word, which of course was really what Bitcoin was built on. And then the whole market flooded with blockchain and crypto, which has nothing to do with Bitcoin, because anything that has a CEO is not Bitcoin and won't work like Bitcoin. A CEO is a company, basically buying some kind of share in some kind of thing that runs on a so-called blockchain, but is not decentralized and is controlled by someone or some entity. In Bitcoin's case, the whole idea of the blockchain is that you and everyone else can verify the health of the network and every single transaction on that network at any time. In fact, it is self-verifying continuously. So when I send you some Bitcoin, you'll get a notification very quickly. Adam sent you some Bitcoin, and you'll usually within 10 minutes, you get at least one verification, which means that a computer somewhere on the network has looked at this and said, okay, that's Adam's Bitcoin. It was signed with Adam's key. It's going to this address, which is Vic's Bitcoin, valid transaction. Usually people will say, okay, once I've had 3 of those verifications from the network, then it's a valid transaction. Ultimately, you'll probably get 50,000, verifications of a transaction. It just takes a much longer time. Okay. So you can verify that I said, send this to Vic, and this is Vic's address. And I signed that with my cryptographic key, which is like my secret password.
Yep.
So the only way you can hack that is by having someone's password, and this password is not something that you leave on your computer or that you put in your browser, memory. This is something that I have a cold card system, so I have an app, and then it's like, okay, I want to send this. And then I have to enter in. First, I have to give my thumbprint to open the app. I want to send this. Then I have to put in a PIN code. Then I have to hold a physical card against my phone before the transaction is sent. That card is in the safe. And of course, there's 2 of them. So there's separate locations for that 2 out of 3 transactions. So even I by myself can't send something without at least one of the 2 other keys.
It sounds a lot more secure than my 4-digit PIN at the ATM.
It is. But of course, if someone gets your card or your PIN, then your bank will probably tell you, okay, we'll stop all the transactions. We'll give you your money back. And, there's some obscene amount. It's like, it's like $8 or $10 billion a year of fraudulent transactions that the banks just eat. How do they eat it? By writing it off, and then fees and printing money somewhere. It's like, they're making money. Don't worry about it.
The banks aren't losing.
No, the banks aren't losing.
I spent a lot of years working at banks. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of reasons why the things cost so much. We could circle back to government regulations, but we'll come off topic here. I'm going to also post a bunch of links in. There's the thing that went on in Nashville, the Bitcoin Summit. What was that called again? That happened back in the summer.
The Bitcoin conference.
Yeah, Bitcoin conference. Michael Saylor did a keynote there. That was, I thought, a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, he talked about buying digital real estate. If you were given the opportunity, 100 years ago to buy a piece of Manhattan, and you could buy a piece of Manhattan every single day, $1 at a time, you of course would do it.
Of course.
And it's the Manhattan, it's the rock. It's not the real estate that's on it. It's the actual land. That's basically the digital. Bitcoin is a digital equivalent of that.